Good morning, everyone. Let's get started. My name is Sarah Deitch, and I'm a Customer Success Manager with SkyBitz. On behalf of myself and the entire SkyBitz team, we want to welcome all of you to Week 8 of SkyBitz Training Tuesdays. Weeks 1 through 7 are available on the SkyBitz YouTube channel. Please subscribe to the SkyBitz YouTube channel if you want to get some great content beyond these videos. Just go into YouTube, type in SkyBitz, and you will see our logo. Please subscribe. We would love to see that subscribed number bump up. I believe some people have in the past couple of weeks, so thank you so much. Again, please subscribe to the SkyBitz YouTube channel. Beyond Training Tuesdays videos, there is a plethora of content on the different industries that we support at SkyBitz. So thank you for that. And in the help section on Insight, these videos are also available. They have all been updated to week 7. Thanks everybody again for attending, and we hope that these 1-hour sessions will improve your level of understanding within the Insight tool in order to bolster your confidence in using our best-in-class user interface to its full potential. And I'm just gonna open this up here. So I just wanted to mention a few housekeeping items, as I always do. We have muted all participants, so we don't have any background noise. If there's any background noise, it would be coming from my side of the table. So if you've muted yourself and want to ask a question later, you have to unmute yourself. So if you've hit that mute button, we've muted everybody already. We can't unmute you. You would have to unmute yourself personally. We have factored in time for Q&A. I'm not 100% sure that the session will go to the full hour, so we will have plenty of time for Q&A, but we will keep it at a reasonable level beyond the end of the Q&A session. And you can also type questions in the chat. So we do have a couple staff members on to answer chat questions, either as I'm going through what topics we're covering today, or toward the end of the session. If there are still chat questions, they'll get answered. You can use the question section, and you can also raise your hand and speak out loud if you would like to. So there are a couple of ways that you can ask questions either throughout or at the end of the session. And again, we are recording all of these sessions, so they're available via for playback via the SkyBitz YouTube channel or in our help section, which I'll review at the end, but the help section looks like this right here on the screen. And let's get started. So today we'll be reviewing the Configure Assets section of Insight. It's one of the main drop-down menus, and this is where you associate your devices to an asset ID. It's a pretty important piece of the puzzle, and it's very consistently used by all of our customers, of course, because when you purchase devices from SkyBitz, they are loaded into your account. They are ready to use, but you have to associate a name to them. You have to activate them. So that's how you then can track them by their asset ID, their name, whatever you call them within your organization. And you can grant folks in your organization the rights to do this. Not everyone needs to be able to activate assets. So that's not necessarily a criteria for everyone within an organization, just people who were involved in the installation process who need to be able to name the devices within the application. Those folks would need to be granted this through the permissions panel within Insight after you set up a user. And the Configure Assets section provides the tools needed to manage your asset IDs. So by default, like I had mentioned, every tracking device shipped to you has an asset ID set to NA. I didn't mention that yet, but they're set to NA. So when you see that as the asset ID, that means that it has not been named by your company as whatever your naming function is within your organization. All right. Let's go to Configure Assets. So here is the dropdown for Configure Assets. You will go through most of these sections. The home section is really just going to kind of go over what I just did and go through each little piece and explain it a little bit further. Each of our sections have a home so that you can kind of click on it and see what's going on with that dropdown. Asset MT setup is where you're going to go first, right? So this is where you're going to install. When you do deinstalls, when you're going to do replacements, move them, meaning I moved it from one asset to another. There's an activity report as well, so we'll hit those on the Asset MT setup dropdown. We're also going to discuss asset type, and I'd say most customers that I deal with as a customer success manager utilize the asset type functionality. It just gives you the ability to give another layer of filtering to your assets. Asset types being dry vans, containers, reefers, different, there's an other, of course, just in case it doesn't fit in there, but I'm also going to show you how to add a name to your dropdown so you can make it fit into your, you can customize it to your account. So in Insight, you'll be able to then select that other type that you've created. And asset details is exactly what it says it is. It's going to give you the details to each asset ID you're looking up. And then we'll just hit on these points: lease setup, DITS setup, and associate container. Leasing functionality kind of goes both ways here. We do have customers that are leasing companies that will lease out to our other customers. And if you're one of those, either or, you do have functionality within, or you should, and if you don't, you might want to contact CARE or your CSM if you have one. Leasing, you're able to then, if you're a leasing company, I can virtually lease my assets out to my customers, regardless of status with SkyBitz. They're able to then view their own group. And if they are customers of ours, then they're able to view their own group within their account that already exists. So that's a whole separate piece that we are going to dive into deeper later. But I just want to make sure everyone's aware. If you lease from a company that works with SkyBitz and uses our uses our monitors, excuse me, then you should be able to view them. They do sometimes allow you a group, to view a group within their account, or they do have the leasing functionality, and vice versa. If you are a leasing company and you're not sure on how to operate that piece of the website, we're going to, again, have a full training on that, but we're also going to ask you to then reach out to your CARE rep or your customer success managers. Really important functionality within Insight. And then associate container is another piece that we're just going to touch on lightly, but it's there, and it's something that we're rolling out. It's more of an automated than a manual process that we're utilizing to make this associate container viable for our customers that have chassis and put containers on them. So let's begin with the most important part, because this part is where everything starts, right? After you set up your account and you're going to start naming your devices, install, right? So install MT. Simply, this is where you're going to label your, and MT means mobile terminal. We see that throughout the site, and I'll say it every week. MT means mobile terminal, also known as the device that's tracking your assets. You have to name it what you would look up to find it, right? So if my assets all are numbers and they start with 1, 2, 3, 4, my next one's 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on and so forth, I would like to be able to look up in Insight my assets by what I call my assets. Can't look them up. Well, you can look them up by the serial number, but that's not something you're really familiar with after you rename it. You can only install devices that are currently uninstalled, meaning if it has an asset ID associated to it already, you are not able to, in the install section, you're not able to rename it. You can do that in a separate move MT. So we'll talk about that later. They have to be NA in order for you to then install them and give them an asset ID. You're going to need the serial number that has to be installed. And you can also do an advanced search, which I'm going to show you how to do that if you don't have the entire, could be a contains or kind of like a Excel functionality. But so when we're here, install MT on asset, meaning install that device on my asset, give it a name. We have help pretty much everywhere throughout the website. I try to hit this every week. Whenever I see a little question mark, I'm going to highlight it. This is going to give you step-by-step how to do it if you forget after I show you. MT serial number. So here I can put in a serial number. If I have it on a spreadsheet, I have 1 or 2 and I want to install them right here, I could type them in. I can copy and paste them from my spreadsheet. I do have one copied, so I'm going to put it right here, hit paste and add to list. So what it's going to do is bring it down here. All install uninstalled mobile terminal, so I'll click that. Anything that has an NA as the asset ID will then be available for you to add a name to. So you'll be able to name it right at that point. I'll show you what this looks like. I hope it doesn't take too long, but the part of this is it's going to go through the entire account, what has NA as an asset ID. Here's the serial number for all of those. If you have a lot, this is, take a minute. You can put in the asset ID here, the install date here, and it will show you any information that comes along with it. When was it de-installed? Has it been used before? And you will have to check the box of the ones that you want to then hit next on. So I want to make sure everybody sees that. When you click on that bubble, that you're going to see every uninstalled device in your account. So not really sure that people use that too much, but I just want you to be aware of what that will do. And then upload. So you can choose a file, and you're asking, hey, what kind of file do I have to utilize? Well, here in this little question mark, which they're always helpful, you click on that. You can have up to 100 records, meaning rows, and it tells you what type of files are supported. And it also gives you a sample Excel for upload. So you don't have to reinvent a wheel or really ask anybody any questions other than get your sample here and fill in the columns appropriately. And then right here, if you have a bunch that you want to copy and paste, you can copy and paste them here. Again, we got a little question mark, 25 serial numbers here. So if you have them here, and that's your limit, and you have to use a comma at the end of each of the serial numbers. So what I also wanted to show you right here is if you click on this search in the MT serial number, you're going to then get another box pop up, right? So when I had talked about if you don't have the entire serial number, you can utilize this here. If you hit the advanced button, that's a button, it's kind of hard to tell other than it's underlined there, but it's almost like an Excel when you can then do a filter and say, I want to find everything that starts with or contains or whatever. I'm going to keep it at contains. And what I type here is just the first couple characters of what I know to be a serial. And then I would hit search. And then it will return every single one that meets this criteria, right? So then I'm able to pick from this list if I have to. I double click on it and then add it to the list. Okay, so there are a couple of ways to find the mobile terminal, also known as the device that's on your asset right here. Those are the 4 different ways in order to install a device on your asset. One thing I definitely want to mention here, after I go through these steps, I apologize, I'm not going to skip through. So I'm going to hit next. Now here's where we're going to start adding some information. This is the most important information here, this page, additional asset details. Just click the box. You're going to want to do that right off the bat because you have to anyway. If you don't and you try to go next, it'll tell you that you need to select which serial number you're dealing with. Asset ID. So this is my trailer, SD1244, and my install date. So I'm going to pick today. If I installed it Thursday, though, I can select Thursday. And it also gives me time down at the bottom, so I can even detail it that much. But I'm just going to go with today. And you want to pick the correct time, right? So if you did install it on Thursday, you want to install it here Thursday. Hit OK. And then go next. All right. Now I have my serial number and my asset ID that's locked in. I can't change it at this point. Asset type. Here's what I was talking about. Most of you already know asset type and you know that you are already using it, but if you're not, just familiarize yourself with it, utilize it. It's another filter functionality, and it's just one step. So it's not really intervening in the process and taking up too much time. This is my dry van. Any comments I need to make here, it's up to you on what kind of comments you want to put that have to do with this asset. But, certainly you can store it within the account. Anything about the asset that needs to, you need to remember about it. But it's really only when you're looking here in Insight that you might need to remember about it. So a lot of people don't use that, but some will put, maybe the license plate number or something like that. So let's hit next. At that point, you can save it. So you can save it here for speeding violations. If you wanted to put a speed threshold in here, this is beyond this setting. You have to then go and configure this elsewhere to, utilize the speed violation. But that was another session that we had talked about. But here's where you would put a, specific setting for this asset. You can save here, or you can go next, and then mileage. So any kind of mileage reading for this asset that you would like to put in here, depending on the type of device you have, that would dictate what type of mileage you're getting from the device. Anything tethered comes out different than solar's virtual. So it depends on what type of device. This is a solar device, so I would put in the mileage, but you have to remember to ask customer care to add mileage to your account if you're going to then want to report on it. I know leasing companies specifically like to capture mileage here based on contracts and stuff like that. So, and then the mileage date, the day that you entered that mileage. If you looked at the mileage 2 days ago and you put it in, you want to put the correct date in that you added your mileage. This is not a required field though. And then you will want to hit save. And then the results would be, for me, good news, request to install MT on asset is submitted successfully. And there are other statuses. I am not going to read through all of them, but what I want people to do, what I want people to understand is different things can happen. When you have hundreds of devices in your fleet, there could be different outcomes. So it might not say submitted successfully. What we have here really is a list of what it might say to you. So if you get something other than submitted successfully, you'll want to hit the question mark and get help on that answer and what that means. So we have serial number specified as not valid. There are different things that could happen, meaning you are trying to install an asset, an MT that's not associated to your account. So when we shipped it out, it wasn't associated to your account at that point, which it should be, but things happen. But I want you to be aware that when you're doing these installations, to check the help if you get anything other than like what I said, request to install MT, successful. Successful is good, of course. So now's the time that I kind of want to talk about another piece that's off of Insight. We do have a mobile app, and I'm hoping that most folks do know about the mobile app for installation. I do have a large number of customers that utilize the mobile app. The mobile app is fantastic. It is the preferred method for installations, moves, replacements, because it ensures that not only is the asset ID established before the asset leaves, but the mobile app also does functionality verification. So you're assured that the device is not only physically installed, but it's functional before the tech releases it. So you have people all over doing installations, and what they're doing is kind of putting a spreadsheet together and emailing it to you. This is common and it's okay, but it is avoidable, right? So the problem then comes in with putting in the wrong numbers. Any kind of, I didn't get that spreadsheet in a timely fashion. We're using a fax machine and I can't read what you sent me. If you call customer care, they will set up a mobile app username and password. They're not the same as Insight. A mobile app username and password for your techs. They'll be able to then log in, scan serial numbers, because these are not short numbers, right? This is a long number. So if I have to type that number in or even sort and filter through a list, it's taken me quite some time, especially larger accounts. So we're able to scan You're able to then put in the asset ID. You're able to see any of these would come up too. So if there was a problem with the installation, if you're sending these back to a central location and they're putting them in at their desktop, then you're not able to then get right at that moment. There was an error. What's the error? Call customer care and they help you right away with the problem. So as you can see, the chain of command when you're using that mobile app is boom, quick, submit it. When you're sending it somewhere and I have to enter all this stuff at my desk, I may be on vacation. I may not have gotten your email. Again, there are many factors, but I'm trying to drive home the fact that you can use the mobile app. It is the best way to do installations, the quickest, the most efficient, and that's what this is all about anyway, efficiency. So that helps, brought that back home there. So efficiency helps there. Now, there are a couple ways you can get to the mobile app guide. You don't have to call and ask. You can. If you're logged into Insight, though, you go into the help section and you go into installation and troubleshooting guides. I want to show you this because it's not, I don't think it's as intuitive as, you know, I wouldn't necessarily know where it was if nobody told me. So at the bottom here in the middle, you can also get to this by Resource Center, this exact page. These are all the installation guides for all of our devices, and the mobile app doc is right here. It is a PDF, and you just have to click into the folders, and here it is, the mobile app user's guide. So it'll give you information on utilizing the mobile app step by step. It's a perfect guide. They didn't miss any steps. But first you do have to call in to customer care, ask your success manager, I need a login for my tech at, you know, whatever location. I only want them to, you know, be able to do installations, and off they go. They won't have access to Insight once you give them access to the mobile app. So that being said, anyone on the call who does not have the mobile app assigned to people who do their installations, please get on that. That would be great. You will need names, emails, and a phone number. We prefer so that we can track who's doing your installations. And that's another piece. You're able to see who performed the installation, even though they're on site with the mobile app. So make sure you're as detailed as you can be with who's going to be utilizing the mobile app. All right, enough about the mobile app, though I might talk about it again later, but let's go back to Asset MT Setup. And I'm going to skip deinstall and go to replace because I'm going to utilize the one that I just installed. And let's look this one up. I have the serial number, so replace. Replace is when you replace an old device on your asset with a new device. So you're taking the old one off because it's not working. It's, you know, you're not using that one anymore, that type anymore, and you want to slide another one in there. That's what replace MT is. Here's a little help here too. Serial number, and I just did. Add that to the list and go to next. So you see the functionality of finding. It's the same as it was when I was doing an install. Things just look a little bit different. So the serial number here, again, just check the box, get it over with first. The serial number that I looked up, the asset ID that is associated to that serial number. My replacement serial must also be an uninstalled device that resides in my account, just like what I had mentioned when I talked about installing. It can't just be, hey, take that off of that trailer, give it to me, I'm going to use it to replace. It won't let you use something that's already been assigned. Replacement date. Again, if you're doing this at your desk and the tech sent this to you last week, put the date in the replacement was completed, and then hit next, and it's the same process. So you're seeing additional asset details. You want to pick, if it's a dry van, it's a dry van. You have another choice there to change it. Speed and mileage details, and then results. Again, if you find you get something other than successful, there's that help bubble that'll allow you to figure out, what do I have to do now? What's the problem? The mobile app is the same. If you get an error, we have details on our guide, what each error means. And then you just save it. It's the same process as installing. And let's go to move. I'll go to deinstall when we're done. And looking up my same serial number, add to list, same filtering functionality, find functionality, hit next. This is when I want to move a working device from an asset because I'm out processing it. I took it off before I sold it to somebody else. It was in an accident and I still have the device and it's still working. Whatever the reason is, I'm moving a working device from one asset to another. Everything here is the same. I just want to show you the differences, which would be the new asset ID. So here, took it off of that, and now I'm going to call it SD3334, whatever you're calling it. And then again, can't stress this enough, please put in the date that you actually did the new install. And even I forgot it, check the box first. It'll yell at you if you don't. Hit next. Then you're going to go through these details again, and you will then be presented with the save button. So each step is very repetitive for a reason, because you're just doing a little tweak on what you kind of have learned already. And then configure assets with the deinstall. Now you're going to deinstall a device, meaning I want to put it back in a state in the account that says it's not attached to an asset. Maybe I'm going to take it off for a couple of days because I just sold the trailer and I don't want it, associated anymore. I'm going to leave it on the shelf. I need to use it for something else, for stock. Whatever the reason is that you would take off a device that has, well, we'll talk about RMA and we'll talk about non-working, but let's just go here. We'll go serial number again. Add to list. We'll go next. So what's going to happen here, if this device is not working, please call customer care. That is the best way to get an RMA. You're not going to be able to check your status of warranty at this point. That's why calling into customer care is important. But if you're taking this thing off and you just don't want to associate it to that trailer anymore, then you can do that at this point. If you have a trailer that has a device on it that you are replacing with another device, you don't need to deinstall. You're going to use the replace functionality because you have a device already to put onto that asset. If you're taking this off for any reason and not replacing it at that time, then you're going to deinstall. So you can, there's two different scenarios, right? So when you're replacing, you want to do a replace. When you're just taking it off and you're not putting a new one on at that time, you want to do a deinstall. So here's the deinstall date, which is whatever day you physically took it off of the asset. Again, if you're doing this manually, you have to do it right here. You want to put the date, and then you would hit save, and the results will say that it was submitted and for deinstall. So I can do that right now. I deinstalled it today and hit save. All right, request to deinstall from MT from asset submitted successfully. So that's great. That's what we want to see. Again, I'm not sure who would be deinstalling something that's already deinstalled, but I'm sure it's happened. Hit status if you get anything other than successful, but this one you're pretty much guaranteed is successful. And then at this point, the serial number does not have an asset attached to it anymore. It is now a NA that goes before. Okay, let's go to, so that covers the asset MT setup: install, deinstall, replace, and move. Those are the four things that if you're not using the mobile app that you'll be doing in here to name the devices, call them what you call them, deinstall, remove it from an asset, replace, meaning I'm taking one off that's bad and I'm going to put a new one on. So it's kind of like just slipping the number in there on the asset ID. It's not changing the asset ID at all. And then move is when I've taken a device from one asset and put it on another one. It's a working device, but that asset that was on before, not in my fleet anymore, I'm selling it, getting rid of it. Okay, so let's look at the activity report. Now, the reason I would want to look here is because I would want to see who did installs, let's look at the criteria here. Who installed, who did deinstall, who did replacements, who made moves. There are different things that you can look at here. And I want to look at installs today. I should just get one there. And if you want to narrow it down by a certain serial number, you can do that, but you can pop this open and go backwards to take a look. Let's just go September 1st to October 6th. Any install action and hit display, and that should produce some results. And while we're waiting for that, again, oh, that was quick. There's a little help functionality here. Search panel, help functionality. Again, I'm not going to read that all because that's a lot of words, and I'm already saying a lot of words. I don't need to read all those, but results returned for all assets and my criteria, right? So I did an install today, and I did do one earlier just to, check everything out. And then I did another install here. Now, if I want to look at any deinstalls, I can hit, and I'll just do it for today, folks, so they're not taking too much time. So I did 2 deinstalls today, right? And select action here, download current page. If there was more than one page of results, which you will see, if you're hot and heavy doing some replacements or you're doing installations, there will be pages on this report. It will say download all pages. So either what you're looking at or all of them. We have that option everywhere throughout the website. And then you would hit go and it will download into CSV. And right here, the information, what was the action? Because I can do any and show everything that was done. But the action, what the date and the time, the username, which is important, who did this, the serial number, and any details. Asset type was a drive-in, the deinstall date, what it was, and then the interface was Insight, not the mobile app. So you would see differences here. So this is a nice report to run. Hey, we're doing a ton of installs, we're doing a ton of replacements. I need to see what's going on. Collectively, you can run this report, and again, it's configure assets, asset MT setup, and that is the activity report. So it's a good report to run. And I will give that a minute. All right. So just went over a bunch of stuff. Biggest takeaway, get the mobile app, get some usernames and logins for the mobile app. I'll stop there with that, but configure assets, a few more things we wanted to go over. So asset type. We talked about the asset type, right? You can customize your asset types. I put fifth wheel in here because it wasn't an asset type prior, but we do have a very comprehensive type list that is automatically populated, right? So this is what we already have. And what I did was I put another asset type in other. So I picked other here and I put in fifth wheel. And any comments, I'm not really sure what kind of comments you might put in here, just variations on what fifth wheel, but or what kind of drive-in or what kind of, we have a lot of stuff in here, a heater, reefer, rail car, a bunch of stuff. So if you need to add, you have a diversified fleet, please, by all means, come in here, type in the name. You have to associate it to a type that already exists, and then hit create, and it will create this for you. And then what you're able to do, anything blue is a link. You can click it open, the asset type, just to see it by itself, type as other, and comments. I didn't put any in there. So that was a real quick overview of setup asset type. That's just, again, another level of functionality, filtering fifth wheels, because I'll show you when we go to the end, when we're looking in the asset view, asset type is a way to filter. I only want to look at fifth wheels. So that's one of the things that you can utilize it for. And let's take a look here again at configure assets and asset details. So I'm going to look at again, everyone's pretty familiar with, oops. I'm just going to pick one out of here. It's a little slow on me sometimes. All right, let's go to, I should have something to display. I'm not going to hit contains. Okay, this is good. So asset ID, clickable. Click here to see your replacement history for this asset ID, serial number. If you hover over it, see asset ID history for this mobile terminal. Serial number is associated to mobile terminal. Again, the MT, see it all over. Install date, Activation status, if I want to rename it, I can do it right here. If I want to change those speed violation settings, I could do that right here. Miscellaneous detail, asset type, if I need to change it, I can do that here. And any lease history, who did I lease it to? I unleased it and I leased it, the lessee name. And any groups that this belongs to would be here. So it's kind of giving you a overview per serial number. You can't do this in a large group. You can only do one at a time, but it gives you the information and you can make some changes here if you need to as well. Now, as far as the other sections, I said we were going to cover just briefly in asset and configure assets. Lease setup, I already kind of did talk about that, but when you're a lessee or a lessor, when you're leasing out trailers, you will have the ability to lease and to unlease right here. There are other spots that you can do that as well. Same thing as naming, but as far as leasing, we'll get into that in a separate section. It's an important part of what we offer to our leasing company customers at SkyBitz. And DITS. So DITS functionality requires a specific hardware configuration. And if you know what DITS is, you know what DITS is. If you don't, then it's irrelevant, but it's been tested and approved by the Department of Defense and is required for carriers hauling specific types of loads for the Department of Defense. So if you're a DITS hauler, it's best that you would talk to your salesperson. We do offer that type of device, and then you would contact customer care and have them walk you through these features, or a success manager. So, we're all able to help you with that. And then associating containers. This is used by customers that have a device installed on the chassis, and then they'll put a container on that chassis. So once the chassis and container arrive at a destination, you remove the container chassis association. And this is normally done via API because it's, it's constantly changing. It's not something that you would want to really incorporate into a manual process. Somebody would be doing that all day based on the nature of chassis container associations and how often they change. But we're ramping this up because chassis tracking is a huge market, as well as container tracking. So if you're not tracking the containers because they're not yours, you're able to then speak back and forth with Insight to say, hey, this container is associated with this chassis for the trip, and then they can be disassociated from the chassis. So thinking about your business, if this is something important to you, you can always reach out to Care, or if you have a success manager, you can reach out to one of us and we'd be happy to walk you through it in more detail, but didn't want to skip it because it's right here. So as far as configuring assets, the biggest piece was, naming your assets. And again, I think I'm going to say the mobile app. Yes, get logins to the mobile app. It will save you time. It is much more efficient. So, and this is based off of people who have said, I'm so glad we're using the mobile app now because the other way was really slow and not as efficient. So we're at the end of that part of the session. What I want to do is my usual. We'll talk about locate assets, and we'll go to the asset view section. All right, here's where that asset type comes into play. But what I wanted to talk about here was the show me how portion of the website. So we do training Tuesdays. They're going to, I believe there are 2 more, and then we're gonna, break for the holidays and come back next year with some different topics. But when we're not offering training Tuesdays, they're available. But if you just want to come into Insight and you're utilizing it a lot, and you see show me how, when you see this here, it's going to explain how to use the section of the website. So if you click on show me how, welcome to the new asset view. Asset view isn't super new, but it is the newer part of the user interface, and it is fantastic. It allows you to apply different filters right at one spot and get results immediately. So, but my point here is show me how. So welcome to the new asset view. Steps 1 of 5. I'm going to go to the next step. Sometimes it's going to ask you to do something. So it's going to say, pick 2 filters, installed only, and I want to look at my chassis. and then, you know, it's going to tell you to hit submit, and it'll walk you through how to use this section of the user interface. It's super, super cool, and it's very user friendly. And then there's another section that I wanted to discuss, which is the help section. So again, we're not on the phones 24/7. When our customer care reps are on, give us a call. They're all tenured and know everything about Insight. But if it's after hours and you're not able to reach anybody, or you just need something real quick, you maybe want to check something out, hit the help box. You can register for Training Tuesdays. You can go on a walkthrough, just like we did with the Show Me How on the asset view. The installation and troubleshooting guides are here. Any release information, anything we've changed that's current, and anything that we in the past have released onto the user interface. We have the Training Tuesday videos, and they are up to date, up to last week, training and webinar videos. So there are different topics here that you can look at. There are many, and they're fantastic videos. They're very helpful, taking you step by step through some of the features and functionality of Insight. And of course, you can always contact us. Again, the email address for customer care, I'll show that at the end of the Training Tuesdays today, like I always do. And let me close this up. Okay. Now, what I wanted to do was, we have 16 minutes for, I really hit the mark again this time. We have 16 minutes for questions. And then I want everyone to know, and I think that was pretty straightforward, so I'm not going to keep everyone on here for 15 minutes, but as soon as the webinar ends, we will be asking a few poll questions. So I would like to just mention that prior, if people could just give it a minute and stay on and answer those questions. So let me open it up for questions. And if there aren't any, I get it, because it wasn't, you know, it's pretty straightforward stuff.
I'm not seeing any questions in the board right now.
Yeah, I didn't think so. That one's pretty straightforward. So we'll just give it a minute, and I will wrap up in a couple minutes. Just, you know, give everybody some time back. That's never a bad thing, right? Let me just put this up here. customercare.skybitz@amatech.com. That is the way to reach customer care. Again, if you can't reach them, help sections always, it is very helpful. There's a lot of information in it to guide you through different sections. If it's, you know, related to your account specifically, I would, and any errors or any messages you're getting that aren't being explained by those little question marks, anything like that, I would recommend waiting to speak to a rep or emailing and hearing back. But other than that, there aren't any questions since I've been yapping. So what I'm going to do is I'll give everybody some time back, and I want to thank everyone for attending this session, as well as some of the familiar names I see who have been attending many sessions in a row. I really thank you for taking this journey with us on the Training Tuesdays. It's something that we really wanted to get accomplished, and we've only been able to do that because people are attending. So thank you so much. And you are our partners. So what we want to be able to do is help you leverage the powerful tools that you have at your fingertips by reminding you, by showing you, by, you know, giving you the information that you need. You know, get in there, use the site, use the help section, use the walk me, the show me how, get in there and do that and watch those videos. Reach out to care, reach out to your success manager, and any information that you want to share with us regarding Training Tuesdays, how we can do better, what kind of content you would like to see. Again, we still do have a few more weeks in 2020 left of Training Tuesdays that we're going to present. But beyond that, we'll be back in 2021 with new content. So let us know how you feel. And I personally thank you for attending. And we will see you next week, October 13th, same time and same place.